You're someone with a vision for your practice, for your side hustle, and for your personal journey. But when it comes to establishing your path on how to get to where you want to be with your practice, things get a little messy. You're also someone who'd prefer to go in person instead of to groups and listening to everyone else's story. To me, it sounds like you could benefit from one on one consulting with our experienced practice of the practice consultants. From $5.95 a month and up, you can work with a consultant that will give you more direction and practical, tried and tested tips matched to you and your goals. For more information, visit practiceofthepractice.com/apply. Again, that's practiceofthepractice.com/apply. This is the Practice of the Practice podcast with Joe Sanok, session number 1376.
All right, y'all. So today I'm really honored to be joined by Joe Sanok. Joe's a therapist, speaker, and founder of the Practice of the Practice, a platform that has supported thousands of clinicians in building practices and careers that are both meaningful and sustainable. He's also the author of Thursday's a New Friday, a book that challenges the way we think about work, productivity, and success, exploring how working fewer hours can actually increase creativity, impact, and quality of life, which, Joe, that's so amazing. I would love to pick your brain on that. His work has been the voice and featured in Harvard Business Review, Forbes, and NASDAQ, and he's been a guest on hundreds of business podcasts. So, Joe, it's so amazing to have you. I mean, top 50 podcasts worldwide, over 100,000 downloads each month. You're the man. And I'm just so interested to dive in and just ask about your journey, kind of like the hero's journey here. But I really appreciate about your work is, you center the human behind each part of the work too, the therapist, helper, the leader. So it just will be really great to hear about your journey through everything here. Thanks for being here, Joe.
Oh, thanks for that intro.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're here. So my first mini episode at soft launch here, I was mentioning to the audience 14 years ago is when I started listening to your podcast, Joe. And I'm just like, and then the entire time, during that until now, my inner critic was blocking me from just like noodling around. I always love using that word. And so as we peel into this chat, Joe, of just like inner critics and like your journey and everything, and you just initially think about, hey, like if I think about my inner critic blocking me, like on an idea I have or had, where does that take you? Like portal, like where does that take you? And just would love to hear about what comes up for you and just sharing that journey with us.
I mean, I think when you say inner critic, right away I go to probably like 2 days ago when my kids had a snow day and like everything was canceled and I'm laying in bed and it's like 10:30 and my brain is like, you should be doing laundry. You should be checking email. You should check on the kids to see if they're awake yet. You should. And not just like, hey, your body's tired and you got a break you didn't expect today where you can just sleep in. Like you don't have any work scheduled at all that you have to do. It's snowy out. Where are you going to go? Just snuggle in and enjoy your time in bed. Like what? Like this like capitalistic narrative of always being productive and like being raised Catholic and, all these things, being a firstborn and being the firstborn of like 18 cousins. It's always like you should be doing something good for the world. You should be doing something good for your life. If you're not, like, there's never a clear finish line. So when you say inner critic, I just feel like, man, like I still deal with that. And I've had to figure out tools for myself to just simmer me down. It's never solved. And I think that's the thing that people think is that whether it's wellness, whether it's inner critic, whether it's like a business, having enough money, it will never be solved. We will always think, oh, I have $100,000 in the bank, I need 200,000. I have $12,000 in the bank, I need 50,000. Like whatever we think that is, it's just not going to be solved. And if we can get comfortable with that pain, with that stretching, with just like the world throws us all sorts of stuff, and that's just how it is. Even recently, we had a good year last year with Practice of the Practice, have kind of built up the nest egg, and I'm like, all right, I'm feeling good. We're going to plateau for a while. Like, just let the money sit there. 2 nights ago, my basement started flooding as we had all sorts of like just stuff going on. And it just was like, so now Roto-Rooter has to come and who knows, like that's gonna be this afternoon.
Right.
You can't, life, that's just life. Life is not gonna be a time that we can really plateau and cruise control. So getting over that for me I think it's helped me at least address that inner critic and say, he's going to be there, but we've got to have some tools and some mindsets to get us through it.
Oh, Joe, thank you so much for sharing that, and just so relatable in so many different ways, for myself for sure, and I'm so many others I can imagine. And the parenting side of it too, yeah, for sure. And then it just, yeah, you let us know, right? Like that inner critic just feels like such that improver, like just
Hmm.
always push, always like just the energy of like how you're describing it, and it's like, oh my goodness. And it blocked you, like that's what you're kind of how you got there, right? Like you're saying it blocked you from resting, of course,
Hmm.
this constant improver. Oh my goodness, and such a force for and grit for like what you've are accomplishing and what you accomplish, day in and day out, and what you have so far. How did the experience of working with that one go as you were creating Thursday's the New Friday? I'm so curious about that.
Yeah, so when I wrote Thursday is the New Friday, I did it during the pandemic. I signed my agreement with HarperCollins on April 15th, 2020. So I'd worked for about a year and a half with a writing coach to just work on the proposal, to have it be my ideas were clear, that it wasn't just pulling from other people's stuff, like what made my voice unique.
Right,
And over, we went to I've really um, over my whole career, and I didn't even realize this until I started writing the book, looked at like how little can I do with the most impact.
right,
And I think a lot of that people would say, oh, that was slacking, that was like not doing enough. But
mm,
to me, it was like unnecessary energy. And
right,
so even my freshman year orientation, I remember sitting with the advisor. There's, I don't know, 4 or 5 of us. And
yeah,
we're talking about classes, and they said, you got to have these kind of core classes, and then you get electives, and none of us really knew exactly how that worked. And so we're putting our schedules together, and I just asked, hey, like, do I have to take classes on Friday? And she's like, no, this is college. Do whatever you want. If you don't want a 8 a.m., you probably shouldn't take an 8 a.m. If you don't want
yeah,
Fridays, don't take Fridays. So my entire undergrad experience, I never had a class on Friday except for one class that I had to have for my psych degree that was only offered Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And
okay,
so other than that, though, I lived that Thursday is the new Friday. And I found that on Fridays, I could do what I needed to do kind of around town, if I needed groceries or do laundry as a college student. And then I could fully enjoy 2 full days off. And so then when I went into my first job after graduate school,
hmm
I negotiated a 4-day work week. I was like, hey, you've got me driving all the way to Escanaba, an hour and a half
yeah,
away, uh, through the snowy tundra of Michigan's Upper Peninsula. You're going to save a lot of gas money and liability if I'm on the road less. And so I really pitched it to them, and they bought it. They
great.
said, sure. So when I really looked at it, I had lived that and experienced how
hmm
I was more creative. I was able to do more
hmm
through working fewer hours and having that genuine time outside of work.
Yeah, you really lived and breathed every experience of that, and just really noticing and landing on that earlier on, I can imagine is helpful for you to like ingrain that into your life each day. Is that something that you find you yourself supporting other therapists on, or like, business owners on? And how does that go for people? What do you notice on that side of it as like leading them through it?
Yeah, I was just talking recently to a consulting client, not you,
I know.
but I was talking to someone, and they own a larger group practice,
Hmm.
and he was talking about how he would be, with his daughter at something and be checking the Slack messages and
Right. Yeah.
figuring out what's going on. As we talked, his biggest pain, like his thing that was like, I'm gonna throw in the towel, like I am sick of
Yeah.
this group practice. It is taking over my life. When
Hmm.
we really started to dissect that, I said, so how many minutes a week do you think you actually spend on Slack solving things with your team? And when he added it up, it was about an hour a week. And then I said, okay, you said that people often come to you when your door is open, you leave your door open all the time, and people pepper in, you don't know when it's going to be. How much time does it actually take to solve what they're going through? They have a payroll issue or this or that. He
Yeah.
said, maybe an hour a week. So we're talking 2 hours a week is
Hmm.
making him feel that
Oh,
he's doing it all the time. And so we said, okay, how about every day? Let's pick a time like 11 to 11:15. You
hmm.
tell the team that's when I'm on Slack. So within 24 hours during the work week, I will
Yeah.
always check your message and solve it. Now, if you have an emergency, and here's
Right.
the types of emergencies I've dealt with in the last 3 years from you that warrant you texting me saying, hey, it's hit the fan. I need your help right now.
Right.
I want to know that stuff as a good business owner. I
Hmm.
don't also want to be thinking about Slack all the time.
Right.
So 11 to 11:15. Monday through Friday, I'm going to be checking Slack.
Mhm.
Also, once a week, I'm going to have open doors that you can schedule if you have an issue with payroll, you have an issue with marketing, whatever you're working on, client issue. And so, say Wednesdays from 1 to 2, I'm going to
Mhm.
have that open door. If my door's shut, I'm going to be working on marketing, building the practice, doing the things that actually help us get to that next level. And even just by talking about that, of thinking, hey,
Yeah.
you have an hour and 15 minutes to be on Slack per week, and you have an hour a week that people can drop in. Could you handle that? And it was like,
Mhm.
of course I can handle that. So it
Yeah.
actually wasn't the staffing issue. It wasn't that they had problems. It was that he hadn't set boundaries. He hadn't looked into what is it that I really, really want out of this business, and how do I create structures that
Mhm.
give my staff what they need, but also give me what I need. And I
That's
think
amazing.
that's indicative of how we as business owners often are, is we
Mhm.
use these really toxic terms like my business is my baby, my podcast
Right.
is my
Yeah.
baby.
Yeah.
There are times when you need to kill a podcast. There are
Yeah.
no times that we should kill our children. So
Never.
it's like
Exactly.
there's
Yeah.
times in a business that it doesn't work for us anymore. We shouldn't abandon
Right.
our kids. And,
Mhm.
and so we use these terms to say, I care about it, but you don't care about your business in the same way you do about your family or your baby. And
Yeah.
so I think we need to move away from those sorts of things to then
Mhm.
say, okay, what is the function of what I'm doing here in life?
Right. That's so
What is
true.
it serving me and my family and my view of the world and the betterment of my community? And it's important work, but it doesn't need my constant attention. It's sort of a neurotic way of thinking about our businesses instead of a planned out way.
So true. That's so amazing. And as you're speaking, I'm really thinking in there of just hearing inner critic narratives, like how that goes as someone is navigating through that, just like you, just like your client, your consulting client. And it's like those inner critics usually like tell us, hey, keep working, keep doing it. You're supposed to. Like all these things, right? What else do they say? Don't ask for help. Like mine over here is a fan of saying that to me. Do it
Mm.
on your own, right? Like that stuff. And so is that something you often find yourself supporting other business owners on, is just like helping them break through that?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I've had to be the one that's been most
Yourself?
supported in that. I think that that whole idea of Thursday is the new Friday is when we give ourselves less time, the
Mhm.
real things come to the surface. There was this guy, Parkinson's, who discovered these, what they call now Parkinson's laws. And one of them is typically well known and the other is not well known.
Okay.
This is true in businesses, true in governments, true in families. That the time that we give something, the work typically expands to. So you think about back in college, you forgot you had a paper due tomorrow. You stay up all night. It might not be
Yeah.
your best work, but you get it done.
Right.
Whereas if a month ahead of time you're really diligent,
Mhm.
you write and rewrite and go to the writing center, and
Mm.
it takes a month to do it. And so that's the side that is typically well known. And I think the side that typically is less known in Parkinson's law is the natural bloating of organizations. So
Right.
what Parkinson discovered was in the British Navy, whenever anything new was put into the system, it was near impossible to pull it out. So say there's
Mm.
a blue form to fill out, and now some supervisor says we need you to fill out that exact same form, but
Right.
fill out the pink form. And it's like the same form, but we have to do that twice. And then now we need a yellow form. And it's like the initial reason is assumed to be a good reason. Now, how does this apply to our lives and how to our businesses is that we have natural bloating that happens, that
Mhm.
we assume what we've been doing all along is what we need to keep doing. We
Mm.
don't have that idea of, if I started a business now, would I even create the business that I have now? And so
Mhm.
when we give ourselves less time, we say in 4 days I'm going to do this, or kids, we're going to blitz the house in 20 minutes, we're going
Yeah.
to get more done, and we're going to focus on the things that matter most. Because in your business, are you going to focus on just the dumb things that take up your time, or the things that actually bring in money, move the needle forward, get more
Mhm.
clients? You're going to focus on those things if you know that you only have the energy for 3 tasks. Same
Right.
with your family. If you know people are coming over in 25 minutes, you aren't going to go clean
Mhm.
every toilet in the house. You're going to clean the one that those people are going to use.
Yeah.
You're going to put the toys away that somehow just got into the
Mhm.
dining room, even though we cleaned an hour ago.
Right.
It's going to be, we focus on the high level things. And so I think
Mhm.
sometimes we need those clear boundaries, especially when we have that inner critic, to say,
Absolutely.
when am I going to actually work on these things? When am I going to allow appropriate criticism? And when am I
Mhm.
going to just move forward fast and not even leave the emotional space or time to think, to let that inner critic even come in?
Right. Wow. That's powerful. That's so powerful. And it's just yeah, the space and sitting in that. And when you were saying that, I'm thinking about intentionality versus urgency, right?
Mhm.
Um, yeah, business owners sitting in that, yes, their urgency because we're therapists too. We have like these decision trees and mandated reporting and things like that are extremely important and require urgency. And it's like, leading a business with urgency probably is something that people should look into, seeing if that's something
Mhm.
they want for their business.
Yeah.
What are your take on that, leading a business with urgency?
It's interesting. I've been doing more work. My partner Claire has done a ton of work around kind of anti-colonial language, anti-capitalism language, learning just like what are the values of kind of predominant white culture,
Right.
and urgency is one of those values. We actually were just talking about it yesterday.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And you just think about it when trains started, they had to have everything be on time because
Yeah.
in Minneapolis, they had to also know in Chicago that that train was going to be on time, so they didn't run into each other. So the idea of timeliness is actually a pretty modern idea. And
Yeah.
you look in like indigenous cultures, you look at like I did some work in Haiti in microfinance for a while,
Yeah.
and it's like they'd say, yeah, we're going to start at 8 o'clock, and you might show up at 8, and
Hmm.
people really aren't arriving till 9, and there's lots of
Hmm.
good reasons why.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
Hmm.
so that idea of urgency, we are in that system. So it's very hard for us to just say, no, like clients show up whenever you feel like it. Like,
Right. Yeah.
we
Yeah.
can't do that. But
Right.
what we can do is say, okay, what values do urgency give us?
Hmm.
And what values does urgency take away from us? And so
Yeah.
if I'm always feeling urgency, the people that are more introverted on my team, the people
Right.
that are more thoughtful, the people that notice problems before they're problems, those people that are, maybe have some kind of deeper, highly sensitive sides, they get
Hmm.
steamrolled. And so,
Yeah.
do I
Absolutely.
value
Mhm.
people thinking deeply about things? Do I value if we're growing the practice academy or support
Mhm.
community for
Right.
folks in private practice? Um, do I want to just keep moving forward super fast, or do I want to have some thoughtful leadership there? And so, if we always lead with urgency, we're going to miss a lot of things, and our team members are going to feel steamrolled. And then we're
Absolutely.
probably going to have some problems that, in most cases, it would be me creating because I'm the one that moves pretty quick within our team, and I'm going to have missed a lot of things that if we had
Mhm.
just slowed down and said, okay, this year what are our KPIs? For practice of the practice, we're growing our membership. We want to hit 500 members within the Practice Academy.
Mhm.
We want to grow our podcast sponsorship because that pays for the podcast. We want to grow our one-on-one consulting.
Right.
We're happy with where it's at, but we're saying, okay, we want to grow that. And so now we can say, okay, Joe has this new idea. Does it support one of those three things? No, it doesn't. It's a good idea.
Mm.
Let's put it on the back burner, but
Right.
we're not going to have urgency around Joe just throwing out these ideas. Instead, we're
Yeah.
going to say, okay, what are we thoughtfully doing to build a genuine and deep community here? How are we making sure that people that have already joined are taken care of and they want to refer their friends? How are we partnering with organizations
Right.
that are connected to therapists that want to join the Practice Academy? So then, by removing some of that urgency that really is self imposed, we're
Right.
saying, you know what? Like,
Yeah.
we want to create a thoughtful, deeper community here
Mhm.
that isn't based just on that false value of urgency.
So well said, Joe. And I feel like, in my little corner over here, um, even with local business owners such as myself that I'm in connection with, and then I imagine everyone else on your end who you support as business owners, it's battling that within the inner critics. The inner critics I find are often so urgent, and they understandably so, right? They want to like mitigate risk that they are concerned about, and make sure the person is appearing a certain way or don't want to be seen, which is very interesting. When me over here wanting to start a podcast took me 14, 13 years to do that. My inner critic finally let up, right?
Mhm.
And so yeah, what do you notice when like if the business owner you're working with like is able to sit with that urgency or the inner critic and look at it in the eyes, like how do you see their businesses transform?
Yeah, I think asking why is something urgent. There are times that there's urgent things. There's emergencies that happen. I had a
Right.
lady once who she was a consulting client, and she had probably a clinician that was 200 progress notes behind, like nine months of progress notes.
Oh,
She
yeah.
had done corrective action. She had done all the things right. And
Hmm.
just like there's things that in retrospect we could look and say, oh, you probably should have checked in weekly or daily,
Sure.
on that
Yeah.
person. But she let that person go, and then that person filed a grievance against the owner's license with the state that she was in. Now, is that something that's urgent? Yes, it is. We need to talk to our attorney. We need to make sure those things are taken care of. We need to make sure our business doesn't go down. If the IRS reaches out, knock
Yeah.
on wood, there's things that are urgent.
Yeah.
But those fires that we put out, we then need to look upstream and say, what did we do over the last 3 or 6 months that we were a part of this problem? If we know someone's behind
Yeah.
on our progress notes, then we probably need to have regular meetings. And if weekly meetings aren't enough and they're still behind, we probably need to have daily meetings. And if we are having daily and they're still behind, we need
Yeah.
to ask ourselves, why does this person work here? Like, do we want that liability? And so just saying this really isn't urgent is a great way to help ourselves move in a more positive direction.
Yeah.
I think that
Absolutely.
oftentimes we have an overvalue of work and an undervalue of fun.
Yep.
And when we start to build the fun side, the work side starts to sort itself out.
It does.
An example, if I can give it,
Please.
is I had this consulting client I talk about in the book, and he called for a pre-consulting call. So I always do a 30-minute call with people just
Great.
to make sure we're a fit, hear what they want to work on, what do we think you're going to do. And so he and his wife were on this call. He owned a really large practice in California, probably like 40 or 50 people. He was charging like $400 an hour and just like killing it. And his name was Jerry, which I have permission to say I read him
Shout out, Jerry.
yeah. So Jerry, his wife said, if Jerry continues on this path, he's going to have a heart attack.
Okay.
And between our pre-consulting call and our first consulting call, Jerry had a heart attack. He went into the hospital. They said, this is mostly stress induced. But as we talked, he thought we were going to start by working on the operations, the KPIs, systemization, getting the front desk to do more, taking Jerry out of the mix.
Yeah.
The first question to him is, what have you given up in this practice that you love, that just fuels you, that you just wish you could do again? That maybe even you dreamt, when I have a big, awesome practice and I'm making all this money, I could do that more. And he didn't blink. He said snowboarding. He lived about an hour away from the mountains in California. And he said, if I could just go snowboarding once a week, I'd be happy as a clam. And I said, if that was a work day where you felt like you were playing hooky and there's no lines, how would that feel? He's like, I would feel like such a baller.
Oh, good.
So what do you think our first KPI was? It was that Jerry goes snowboarding every single Wednesday. And so from that, then everything else had to get sorted out. He had to say, well, wait, every single intake that comes in, I approve who that goes to. I now have to make a decision-making matrix for what kind of clients I actually need to. Okay, if someone's suicidal, I as the owner want to like weigh in on that. These other issues that are high liability, maybe personality disorders, high conflict, divorce, I want to weigh in on that. The rest, though, I think I'm good. And so for 2 weeks, what we did is with the front desk, every single morning, he had a 5-minute meeting to go over the new intakes. And they said, here's who I think we should assign these to. Jerry, do you agree? And he said, yes, yes, yes. So he then built that trust that the front desk knows what they're doing. They're leading the process of taking that off of Jerry's plate, not Jerry. Jerry doesn't have to figure it out. So then Jerry starts snowboarding every Wednesday, and more the staff realizes, okay, we don't need to go to Jerry for every little thing. And so over time, the business started to work itself out because he focused on fun. He focused on his needs. He then was more lighthearted, and he could also say the amount of clients that I'm seeing is more than what I want. So he said, okay, you're charging $400. Let's try $550 a session. He's like, that's crazy. I'm like, $400 is crazy. Like, what's the difference?
Come on, Jerry.
So we raised his rate to $550. I don't know where he's at now, but I imagine he's much higher. And so when we start to say, well, what do I actually want to time block in things that I love, it then helps us just remove that inner critic completely, where it's just like, okay, this is getting me snowboarding. I want to go snowboarding. So like, let's figure out these tasks, because now we have that energy behind the actual business side much differently than if we just were just saying, oh, I need to like work on outsourcing things. A year from today, what would your dream private practice look like? Would you spend less time chasing claims or only working with clients who value your skill set? What if you had a network to reach out to for questions or free continuing ed? What if you had more time for yourself? Alma empowers you to confidently accept insurance backed by an all-in-one EHR that simplifies scheduling, documentation, and day-to-day practice operations. With a network of engaged providers and free CE resources, Alma makes it easy for you to build the practice of your dreams on your terms. Alma believes that when therapists get the support they need, mental health care gets better for everyone. Learn more about Alma at helloalma.com/Joe. Your dream practice is closer than you think. Get started now at helloalma.com/Joe. That's helloalma.com/Joe.
Wow, that's incredible, Joe. What a powerful story. And Jerry, goodness, and all the Jerrys, right? Like, right, all the Jerrys out there. And it goes back to like self-trust, right? Trusting yourself, trusting the energy that you feel that is refreshing, trusting like that's a way, trusting your helpers, right? Trusting who you hire for guidance, of course, and then trusting your team. That's what you are saying too, Joe, right?
Yeah.
And then just like I kind of like sitting in that a bit more of Jerry's story. Joe, what's kind of on your end, if you're able to share, if you have like something like that to impart onto us in the audience of like your story, right? Like what's something that life-giving that you brought back, right?
Yeah. So in 2020, my daughters and I went on the road to live in the national parks during the pandemic, and we had planned this even before the pandemic. And my now ex-wife was with us, and in the middle of that, she decided to leave the family, run off in California, and I ended up bringing the girls back home.
Mm-hmm.
And throughout that process of divorcing, of becoming an unexpected single parent, of getting near full custody of the kids, of helping them deal with their trauma, of their mom, wait, why is she not here anymore? And like just sorting through that, trying to even understand how after a 17-year marriage, like the
Oh
bridge
goodness.
could be burned that big behind us. Like I
So
always thought it'd be like we'd have a decent co-parenting kind of thing. Like
right.
I have nothing to be angry about other than like sure, like I have my own stuff to work on for you know,
Mm-hmm.
an affair happening and all of that. But it's like, yeah, I don't have things with the kids that I need to like be angry about. So that's what I
Right.
had a vision for. That
I
didn't
get
happen. But
mm-hmm.
how that manifests was definitely like, if you look at your Enneagram side, when you're
Yeah,
not in health, my perfectionism came out a ton.
get it.
And so I
Mm-hmm.
made sure my house looked like a catalog. I wanted
Mm-hmm.
I had someone snow blowing for me. I had someone mowing the lawn. I got new furniture that was nicer.
Yeah.
I made sure the kids had nice organic meals. We had fun and all these things that are good.
Right.
And now that I'm years out from that,
Yeah.
I wanted my family and friends to see that I had my crap together and that it wasn't affecting me. The pain, the anger, the hurt, all that wasn't affecting me.
Understand.
And that, I mean, I think that's a natural reaction, but I don't think it's necessarily healthy. That puts a lot of pressure on girls that are already going through trauma to not be able to just like leave their laundry out for a couple days and be like, yeah, you're hurting, you're sad. Like, we don't need to care about laundry. No, instead it was like, no, let's make sure this house looks really nice so that
I
I
hear
feel like I have my act together. So I think that sometimes we have these swings and we need to just be gentle with ourselves and say, yeah, like I acted like a fool during that divorce and just like, wanting to make sure things look good and perfect and going through a terrible, difficult time
right.
and
Mhm.
I don't need to have criticism around it. I can say that was a adjustment for me, and
Right.
being in therapy during that time, doing
Mm-hmm.
guided psychedelic
Oh,
meditation,
love
doing
that.
like deeper work, with
Mm-hmm.
regular meditation, and those things
Incredible.
have helped me kind of pull out of that to say, you know what, I get a front row seat to a very interesting movie through the eyes of Joe,
Oh,
and that to me is like wow, like this is an interesting flawed character that I get to see front row how he
yeah.
thinks and who he is.
Oh, Joe, thanks for sharing that. I mean, what a gift for you to share that part of the journey. So painful, and then looking into that, just that part was just trying to do its thing, right? We know that, right? Trying to feel better, trying to make things. The intention is golden,
Hmm.
and I love that so much about the inner critics that we all have.
Yeah.
And that's the endearing part. If we can get out from certain part and have distance in such a way where we can say that finally, right? That's the point too, that's in there. If we get some distance from it and can sit in this spot of like appreciating it, the intention for it, right? Like totally get it.
Hmm.
So well intentioned, wants everything to be seem just fine as you're going through a thing, as anyone's going through a thing. And so it's just so visceral. And on my end, right, with my journey of podcast land, I'm just so tickled how it started off by listening to your podcast 13 years ago. And then I get to have you on as the first guest and we get to have this beautiful conversation. It's just incredible. And so it took me learning my intention of my inner critic, right? So speaking of the intention, right? Doesn't want me to be seen, doesn't want me to be, it wants me, Emily, to just, don't worry. No one sees her. She's fine. She's fine. No one sees her. She's doing right. So these inner critics have these narratives and it's just so powerful. The
Mhm.
intention of it. And like, it's just our conversation of like, personal life and the journey of work and everything you're accomplishing, Joe, and who you're, what you're supporting your consultees on, Joe. It's battling these parts of us, right? And befriending them. So the befriending part is interesting, isn't it?
Mhm.
How have you befriended your inner critic these days?
Yeah, I think it's really important to say that the inner critic serves a purpose. It
Mhm.
keeps us safe. It helps us analyze things. Like
Right.
if you do a public speech and then you go home and you criticize yourself, if you really look at that, what you're doing is you're dissecting what you said to see if it's what you wanted to say. Is that the person I want to be in public? There's some learning there, similar
Right.
to maybe I'm not a football guy, but like I hear football teams like watch tapes afterwards to see what they did
Yeah.
well, what they can improve on.
Yeah.
Like that's
Ah,
good. That's good. I mean, that's what we want in our businesses to say, hey,
mhm.
we're doing this project. This didn't quite work. Let's analyze it. So there are good things about the critic, but I think it's like the tone. Is it
Yeah.
saying, I'm so dumb for not starting a podcast for
Mhm.
14 years. I shouldn't have. Well, who knows what kind of stress that would have put on your life 14 years ago? Who
Yeah.
knows what,
Yeah.
if you are emotionally available enough to do a good podcast,
Right.
maybe you needed to grow up. I don't know you well enough to say
Probably.
why, but
People say yeah.
either way,
Yeah.
right now you're starting a
Right.
podcast. And so
Yeah.
I
Right.
think going back to it serves a purpose. So it's not inherently bad to
Mhm.
critique who we are and what we do. Does it then jump from looking
Mhm.
at the behaviors and saying, in the same way we do to our kids, like, hey, you didn't put your laundry away.
Right.
I care about the laundry not being put away. It's not like pointing out you're a bad child and then shaming
Mm.
you. So
No. Yeah.
that same sort of thing of, okay, I can say, oh, I liked what I did on Emily's podcast. I didn't like it. But then
Mhm.
when it jumps to that criticism of my core, that's where I think we've got to say, hey,
Mhm.
thank you. And I think Elizabeth Gilbert said something like this about fear. Like, you've served me. Now you
Yeah.
can sit in the back seat for a little bit.
Totally.
And so that's fine. It's going to be there. But we can just say, hey, I'm going to let like courage and bravery and risk take the front seat for a little bit with me. They're
Yeah.
going to guide me and I'm going to just see how that goes for a bit. And
Right.
criticism might be yapping in the back seat, but it's like, hey, like mute for a little bit, buddy.
Mhm.
Like, I get it.
Mhm.
You care for me and I effing hate you right now. Stop
Yeah.
criticizing me.
Seriously. Yeah. Right. I know. But really. And so right, like the part you're saying, 13 years of growing up and life experiences, absolutely on my end. And it's like it's the relinquishing, right, of that identity of the part that wants the driver's seat so badly. And I'm sure you've seen Inside Out too, right? Like
Mhm.
about anxiety at the steering wheel. Spoiler alert, people, so good. Um, but yeah, no, just thinking about that. And so, what gives you energy these days, Joe? Like, what do you make sure is a part of your day, day in and day out? That's
Yeah.
like that thing that's like, oh, that like Jerry loves skiing, right? Was that
Mhm.
right? What's
Snowboarding.
snowboarding? Yes. What's yours?
Yeah, I have a few different things that I just love that fills my time. I've been really into watercolor painting for the last few years. So lately, I've been doing a series on Rage Against the Machine songs that are watercolor painted. And so I just finished this bull that's playing a big bass drum with a marching band hat. So it's a bull on parade. So bulls on parade. And
Amazing.
then I'm working on now one that it's that image from Say Anything when I think it's John Cusack's like holding the stereo above his head.
Oh yeah.
But then I gave him like a guerrilla warfare mask, so it's like guerrilla radio. So I'm just doing these like funny like takes on Rage Against the Machine songs. And I love playing Mario Kart with my daughters. Like it's the only time that we're allowed to talk really mean to each other. So like we have a rule that like you can swear, you can come up with witty ways to insult people, and it's like they just like release the tension. So they'll say things like, "Hey, Dad, have you been hydrating today?" And I'm like, "Yeah," and they're like, "Cause you're about to cry," and it's just like So that's super fun.
That's
And then
so
every Tuesday I do improv. I started this improv
cool.
troupe where we do a fake true crime, like 45-minute thing where we get a ridiculous weapon and place to get killed. And
That's great,
yeah,
Joe.
so just I like
Wow.
to play with the arts a lot and socialize with
Mhm.
people and yeah.
That's so beautiful. And so if you portaled yourself to a time when potentially like this happening now didn't seem possible, yeah, how does that feel to feel that difference? Does that you then want to thank the you now? Like, what do you notice?
Yeah, I think I immediately think about like when my daughter was going through heart surgery, and then I was like going through cancer, working full time in a job, and then also having my private practice. It was just like a
Mhm.
busy chapter of life more than like anything self imposed or inner critic. But I think that it's just understanding that there are chapters in life. Like sometimes you have a lot of power over what your world looks like, and sometimes
Sure.
you have very little power. I mean, you get sick parents, you have a partner that leaves, you have all sorts of things happen in the world that we have zero control over. And so I think it's less probably like saying, "Oh, like you thought wrong before and now you think right now," and more of just watching the natural seasons of life while also saying, I could very easily just go on my phone and look at TikTok, but I'm going to choose to go do watercolors, or I'm going to choose to play Mario Kart and be intentional on those things. And so I think it's just recognizing that there's a natural unfolding, and I don't know what's going to happen next, and that's really interesting. And the
Mhm.
areas I have control, I'll have the best that I can, and in the areas I don't, I'll hopefully try to not personalize it.
That is so helpful, Joe. Just, I know that so many, all of us cut from the same cloth of like, like achieving and business ownership and ambition and ideas, it's just so helpful to hear that because we're always trying to plan, right? Getting 20 steps ahead of a thing, SOPs, and things that are intentionally important, like planning them out and everything else. But then your message right there of, you know, there's so much we can actually harness. We
Hmm.
got to go for the ride. And so it's like, huh, how does that make those inner critics feel? It's kind of like we're relinquishing. This is it. So allowing the parts of you and ourselves that are creative to have the chance to feel that seems like such an important place to land. And you
Yeah.
mentioned that earlier, right? Like the intertwining of that creativity with work and it kind of goes some cool places.
I think that there can be this swing where on one side there's, hey man, it's just going to work out, like don't be so stressed about your
Oh,
business, and then there's the other side that's just like, you've got to get your KPIs done, and if you don't, it's all going to fall apart.
yeah.
And it's just like both are true and both are untrue. And so
Mhm.
there are lots of times that I work really hard. And so even though I limit my schedule, when I'm working, sometimes I even forget to eat lunch. And it's just like I'm so in it, and I'm like, oh
Mhm.
crap, I got to schedule lunch in so that I don't just go full tilt. Or I'm like, why did I
Right.
do this to myself?
Yeah.
Um, so there is hard work, but I think that the stepping back allows me to say, what's the work that I really want to run
Mhm.
into, that I want to go full tilt when I'm working? And at the end of the day, sure, it's exhausting, but it feels like, oh my gosh, that was a great use of my time today. So
Yeah.
that's what I think the movement for most owners is saying in the day to day, like, what do I hate doing and what can I hand off? What do I
Mhm.
love doing and maybe I shouldn't be doing? And what do I love doing that I really should be doing? And starting to really itemize that kind of love hate list can be
Yeah.
super helpful to just say, I want to spend as much time on the things that really amplify practice of the practice. So I want to be looking for big partners. I want to be looking for big sponsors. I want to be supporting people that are doing really good work like this. And
Mhm.
that doesn't mean that the other work is less than, it just means that my skill set and my vision don't line up with that work. And so hiring someone, giving someone a job,
Right.
helping them feed their family to
Mhm.
be able to do the work that for me isn't where I'm at right now is a great use of my money.
It's a great use of it. It is. And that's the way to get to where you want to go. And then my inner critic likes to, well, it helps for it to be reminded of you can't do everything on your own, Emily.
Hmm.
Those firstborns, right, Joe?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we were told to like be
Yeah.
an example to the family, be an example to the cousins, all of it, and that's good. I think it's we have an advantage in a lot of ways where we can be fiercely independent,
Mhm.
and I think that we also miss out on what it feels like to have other people help us.
Right. So the weathering of life that you have been so generous to share that you've survived through, thank you. And just getting through each day. And then it's like getting to a spot within these journeys of noticing, oh, hopefully that anyone can get to the spot of like maybe I'm coming out of survival mode a little bit. maybe. And then it's just like, okay, we got to update the system here and see maybe creative. It's safe to be creative.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's really beautiful to see where things can be born from those spaces. And so, yeah, it's just been such a pleasure to land here with you, Joe, and to hear your stories and impart your wisdom onto the audience here. Is there any final messages you want to let people know about as they battle and befriend their inner critics?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this has been just an awesome experience hanging out with you today on your first guest podcast. Well done. I would say, yeah, in befriending that inner critic, I think just recognizing that it may have served a function that it doesn't serve anymore, uh,
Yeah.
and that oftentimes when we pepper in that fun, it's a lot easier to figure out what needs to be done to keep that going. So I would challenge everyone to find one area that you've been loosely interested in. This summer, I did a bonsai class with Claire, and it was fun, but I don't think bonsais are my thing to do long term. So finding those one things that you could test, that you could experiment, to say, hey, what would it be like to take an improv class? What would it be like to take a pickleball class? Maybe I've always wanted to do pottery. Well, if you always wanted to do pottery, why don't you go do some pottery? So finding those things that your family has to align around you to then say, listen, Tuesdays are my pottery night. Thursdays are my golf night. That's what my parents had. I still
Yeah.
remember it. It's like
Oh,
we all need those things that help
we do.
us feel creative, feel like we're exploring things.
Mhm.
And as we do that, it forces our families, forces our world, forces our businesses to figure out their place to make that happen for you. Most people that love you want to see you go do pottery or improv or play golf more because you're a
Yeah.
better person, you're an easier person to be around when you have that juice of life going through you. So I would just challenge everyone listening to find one thing that they can step into and to give it a whirl.
Joe, that's so beautiful and golden. Yeah. The juice of life. We're going to put a bow on that. Does that sound good?
That sounds great.
Thank you so much for being here, Joe. It's been an honor. And I can't wait to do any future episodes we do together. It's been a privilege to hear about your journeys.
We couldn't do the show without our sponsors. Alma is our sponsor today. A year from today, what would your dream practice look like? Are you spending time chasing claims? Are you in network? Are you out of network? Are you dealing with all sorts of different things? Alma believes that therapists, when they get the support they need, better mental health happens for everyone. You can learn more about Alma over at helloalma.com. Your dream practice is closer than you think. Again, that's helloalma.com, and I forgot to say /Joe. So helloalma.com/Joe. They'll help with the billing. They'll help with just making it easier for you to run all the scheduling and documentation within your practice. Thank you so much for letting me into your ears and into your brain. Have a wonderful day. I'll talk to you soon. Special thanks to the band Silence is Sexy for that intro music, and this podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the producers, the publishers, or guests are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, or other professional information. If you want a professional, you should find one.